Ever wonder what it really takes to build a business and a life that feels like yours? Welcome to That Big CEO Energy. I'm Callie, entrepreneur, operations whiz, and your go to for the real, raw, and unfiltered side of business and life. Because let's be honest, entrepreneurship isn't just about strategy and success, it's about figuring out who you are in the messy middle, trying new things, well, just because you can, and creating a life that actually fits you. From solo deep dives to candid convos with powerhouse business owners, we're talking all about the highs and the lows and the why did no one warn me about this moments that come while chasing big dreams. So let's get uncomfortable, embrace the chaos, and make it happen. We're going to talk about it. Let's talk about the jobs we never really wanted, but we said yes to anyway. Can we? Can we do that? And we took them not because they lit us up or called us forward, but because they came with health insurance, a stable paycheck, the illusion of safety. This episode is prompted from a conversation that I actually had with my husband. And we had gone on a date night, as we do almost every Friday. And we rode the motorcycle to the neighboring town to have a burger. So they have Five Guys. We do not. Five Guys, are you listening? We do not have a Five Guys. I would like one, please. Anyways, not the topic of today. We somehow got on the conversation of what jobs we have had like throughout our career and or like throughout our life of when we started working. And for most of us, right, we started working when we were like, I don't know, 14 and 9 months. That's like when you can get a work permit and all the things. So he went through and listed all of his jobs, and it was a lot. And I have a lot too, but it was slightly less. And if you are part of the Kids Having Kids Club, then you probably also have a lot of jobs. What I mean by the Kids Having Kids Club is we had our kids young. So I think he was around like 18, 19. Same with my brother. Him and my brother are really close in age. And so I'm trying to think of like who had who first. But, anyways, and then as many of you know, I had my daughter at 20 years old. I got pregnant when I was 19, had her when I was 20. So in that time, you are finding survival, right? And most of the time, you're finishing up college, you are trying to juggle being a parent. You also have to work to provide for said child. And so most of the time we end up in this like chase after money, right? And it's interesting because when I was in the recruiting space, the HR space, I often would see people leave their job for like the next quarter. Like if they were working a job for $10 an hour and they found a job that was working, or like we had a job for them that was 10.25, they would leave. And they leave because like they're safe, right? Like we have to, especially if we're in the mindset of being a single parent or a young parent or just sort of in that momentum of life, we often try to find jobs that create more safety for us. And then and then you get like your breakthrough, right? Like for most of us, we get the breakthrough of finding the big people job. And for me, that didn't come until after I graduated school. When I was in school, college, university, I was working three jobs. And so I've always sort of like done lots of different things. And most of the time it was simultaneously. So we do this again because of safety. And when we get like our big job, And it's like you have benefits, you have PTO, you have health insurance. You're like, what is this? Where has this been my whole life? And what happens is we stay. Like we stay there because the benefits are so good, because we haven't experienced anything else like it, right? We stay because we have PTO time now, and we don't have to worry about if we take a day off, we're missing out on money, and then how are we going to pay our rent? Right? Like raise your hand if you have ever been in that situation. I'm sure for a lot of us, we have. And so when you get things like PTO and now they're like contributing to a 401k, and you're like, what is a 401k? I have no idea what this is, but yes, please take 3% of my paycheck because you're matching 3%. So we stay. We stay with them because they have found value in us, obviously, right? For my husband, it's a little bit different because he got into an industry that you move when sometimes when the market shifts, or you move when yeah, you're like chasing the dollar because it was like it's the oil fields and it's what you do. And so when the money is right, when the days, that you're on hitch and off hitch are right, like you make that move and you do it over and over and over. The difference is in like his realm, he was making enough money to just kind of like pacify him to the next time, right? Like, but when we think about when we're younger and we're working jobs and we don't like I think about my daughter, right? Like she works at a pie shop here locally. Very cute. I actually worked there when I was coming out of a divorce, and that's a really long story. But anyway, she works there. And she makes a little bit over minimum wage. She is a college kid. She works there part time. They don't provide benefits, they don't provide PTO. And so even though it's not like in this scarcity mindset that she's having to do things, praise God, she still has to think about like, well, I can't take my vacation. Like, we're going away in September. And she's like, okay, well, I'm going to be missing this much paycheck. And so she has to do that like gymnastics math, right? To be able to make her car payment because she has one of those and like other things. She has safety in a different way. And so what I'm really talking about today in the sense of we often find ourselves in a position that we said yes to a job because it came with health insurance, because it came with a stable paycheck. If you found yourself in a salary position, you're like, I know exactly what I'm making and when I'm making it and how much I'm going to get paid. And we also got into this job because of safety and this illusion of safety. And so what do? We stay, we settle, and then we shrink. And my husband, thankfully, has a job that he absolutely adores and works for a company that truly take care of their people. And so this is not anything to do with him, but it definitely is something that I have gone through in my career. And we often trade our ambition for a benefits package, our creativity for PTO, our time, our energy, our joy for just enough. But here's the truth, you guys, that no one's going to tell you. Scarcity mindset is not a career plan. Let me say it louder for the people in the back. Scarcity mindset is not a career plan. So today I want to dismantle this narrative. I want to name the patterns that keep us stuck in these jobs that we hate. And I want to walk you through and toward a new strategy, one that starts with ownership of ourselves, one that doesn't leave your dreams on the shelf while you punch in at a job that is slowly draining the life out of you, and get you out of this scarcity mindset. Because again, and say it loud with me, scarcity mindset is not a career plan. So let's start with what I'm going to call the lie of at least thinking. And I'm putting at least in air quotes. You know it. You've said it. At least it has benefits. At least it's a paycheck. At least I have a job, right? We've all said those things. And these are phrases that they sound harmless, right? They even sound responsible. But I'm going to call them what they are. They're coping mechanisms for staying stuck. We use at least to literally justify anything. We use it to justify our misery. We use at least to cover up the ache of what's going on down below. We use at least to silence the whisper in us that wants something more. At least is a justifying mechanism. It is what we use when we don't have words for anything else, such as, let's say we got into a car accident, right? And I've done this before, so I am totally like raising my hand. But let's say we got into a car accident. It wasn't as bad as it could be. See how we're like starting with the at least mentality here? So, perfect example. I totaled my car 2 months ago, 3 months ago. May. I totaled it in May. It was the week of, no, I'm sorry. It was the week before we were going to pick up Alexis from Texas. Alexis is my bonus daughter, Chris's daughter. I just call her my daughter because that's just what she is. And I'm not a mother that birthed her. However, I'm a responsible adult that loves and cares for her. So I'm her second mom. I love it. Anywho, again, not the point. But I was merging onto the highway and it had been a super rainy day. And you guys, this car had been nickel and diming me since the day I bought it. I bought it at a time where nobody on the planet should have been buying a car. We all know what time that was. And so, but I bought it because we needed it. So I merged onto the highway, and all of a sudden, it was like sheets of rain sideways that, like, if you and I were standing 2 feet apart, I wouldn't be able to see you. That's how heavy it was raining. And so I hydroplaned, which, if you've ever done that before, you know how scary it is. If you've never done that before, it's scary. I hydroplaned into the ditch. Lucky for me, there was a sheriff behind me that was traveling in the same direction. And I quote, he said, I saw you really giving that steering wheel hell, but I thought to myself, that girl is definitely gonna go in the ditch. And I did. So, all of that to say, my car ended up getting totaled, which was a blessing in disguise. We call her Pepe. It's the cutest. Like, she's the cutest little trailblazer that ever did live. And I knew I wanted like a SUV. Again, not the point of the story. The point of the story is we all know that I had been still and am walking through an ACL repair. So I'm in the ditch and I'm like, you know what? My husband is working from home today. My husband is going to come and get me out of the ditch because my husband is a saint. That is what he does. If there is a crisis, my husband is like the steady Eddie of them all. He is like, we're just going to figure it out. That's probably like the previous firefighter in him, which bless him for being like that. So we get all of the car stuff figured out. And I say to him, at least it wasn't as worse as it could have been. So again, like I'm using this coping mechanism to justify this situation, but also what I'm actually doing is I'm minimizing how terrible I feel in that situation. Yes, I didn't love the car. Yes, it had been nickel and diming me. Yes, I had to get out from underneath of it. Right? Like, and we had just had a conversation like 2 weeks prior of like, we have got to get this car paid off so I can get out from underneath of it and get something else. So, like, all of those things were true. But what also was true is I had never hydroplaned a car before. I was stuck, literally stuck in the ditch because of the angle that my car was in. It was very hard for me to open the door. It was raining cats and dogs. I already was like in pain from my elbow, trying to get to the doctor who was going to help me with my elbow. And I was under a time crunch because we also were leaving for Texas. Like it was a big emotional ordeal. And if somebody tells you that you should minimize your emotions over something that at least it wasn't something else, you still have the right to have big feelings. Like, we are people with big feelings, and big things happen. Small t, big t trauma, like all of these things happen, but they affect us. Like, if you've ever read the book, and I'll link it below, it's not sponsored here, but if you've ever read The Body Keeps the Score, like, there are things that your body keep as the score. And so all of this to say, I'm using the phrase in this situation, well, at least I'm still alive, or at least like it wasn't as bad as it could have been, or at least I have insurance, or at least, I have gap insurance, and at least when I'm doing all of that, I'm literally justifying and covering up the ache that is actually happening. I didn't want to get into a car accident that day. Like, I didn't want to interrupt anybody's day, but more so, we have had car situations I feel like happen since like forever. And it's just like one more thing to add to the timeline, right? Like, we live life in such a fast pace that when something as small as a car accident, because on this grand scheme of life, it is a blip on the radar, it happens, blah, 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 blah. But when something as small as a car incident happens, you now have to like reroute your whole entire life to like figure out the situation, right? And like, if everything else is also stressful, it's like, oh my gosh, really? One more thing? So, like, using the words again, at least, and I know I'm like hammering this home, but I want to, when we use the words at least, it's coping mechanisms for staying stuck. And it silenced the whispers in us that just want something more, that just want something different. And that whisper, that's not entitlement, that's your intuition. That is your gut. That is God in underneath of you. That is the Holy Spirit in you. That is your inner wisdom reminding you that being tolerated by your job or by whatever your circumstances is not the same as being fulfilled. So, getting back to the job thing, right? Your inner wisdom is reminding you that being tolerated by a job is not the same as being fulfilled. At least thinking is rooted in fear, not in fulfillment. It's a survival response. It's the mental math of someone who doesn't feel like they're allowed to want more. And when you operate from that space day after day, month after month, year after year, it takes a toll on you. It takes a toll on your mental health. And then all of a sudden, you stop and you look around. After 10 years in the same role, you realize that you're numb. You realize that you're getting up at the same time every day, doing the same thing at the same time every day. We see it on social media. My 6 a.m. routine, they're brushing their teeth at the same time every day. And then you're burned out. And then what happens is you get so disassociated from your own ambition. And again, it's not because you're ungrateful, it's only because you've been living on these breadcrumbs. And when you've been living on your breadcrumbs, you tell yourself, this is enough. This has to be enough, right? I've done all the work to get here. I've made it. And that's what I used to say too when I was like in corporate and I was in a leadership position. I'm like, this can't. Ellie, what are you thinking about? This is enough. Like, this has to be enough. You've worked your hiney off to get here. But what if it isn't? What if it isn't enough? What if at least isn't a reason to stay, but it's all the reason to question? And that's what I want us to think about and start putting inside of our lives. Because here's the thing. We're going to talk about it. We're going to talk about the cost of playing it. What is the cost of playing it safe? And let me be clear. I am not anti-safety. I'm anti-shrinking. I'm anti-burnout. I'm anti-resentment because when you play it safe, it comes with a cost. Just like it comes with a cost with not playing it safe, right? But when you play it safe, it comes with the cost of your emotion. So if you wake up every day with a pit in your stomach, you clock in, or if you're on salary, your phone is already ringing. Listen, sometimes my husband comes home and he's absolutely exhausted and he sends me a screenshot of like the rolling phone calls, talking on the phone all day, every day. And he, do not mince my words, he loves his job. He is so good at his job. The people at his job love him. Like it is a loving situation. But some days when you are talking on the phone literally all day, you guys, sometimes you get home and you don't have anything left to give, no matter how happy you are in your position. But the difference is when you clock in, or for some of you, when you're on salary, when you wake up, you feel like you're performing and nothing. And then all of a sudden you turn around and you don't even recognize yourself anymore. You used to have big dreams, you used to have big goals, and now you're literally just met with deadlines. So that's the emotional cost, is this feeling like you're always performing and Sunday scaries are the thing. But the financial cost, like the financial cost of all of this is no matter how good you are, how hard you work, how much extra you take on, your income is fixed, especially if you're in a salary position. And worse, you've outsourced your earning potential to a company that sees you as a line item. Let's let that sink in for just 1 second. You have traded your time and your earning potential to a company that sees you as a line item, because that's the reality of running a business, right? Like everything has to be on a line item. Everything has to be tracked. Everything has to have a quantifying action as to why they are making the revenue that they are making and what they're going to do with it. And then what do they have left over? That's the reality of running a business. Whether it's your own business, whether you're working for somebody else that is running their business, that's it. You are a line item. But the identity cost, and this is the hardest one, is you start to confuse secure with safe. Those are not the same thing, right? Secure is, what is secure? Secure is a locked door. It is like you've locked the door, you can't open it anymore. That's why we lock up our houses and our cars. Is my my daughter's dad always says, locks only keep the honest criminals out. But it's true, right? Like secure is a locked door. Safe, safe is freedom. Safe feels like I have freedom to be myself. I have freedom to explore different things. And no matter what, nobody's going to hurt me. Nobody's going to harm me. I'm in complete control of myself. And most of us are locked in. We convince ourselves that it's responsible to stay, right? Like responsible. I remember when I lost my branch, it shut down and I was on unemployment and I thought, well, this is going to be the big thing that I am going to spend 6 weeks getting my life together, figuring out the company, how I can use my transferable skills to start a company and all the things. And so I did. I created a website and I like created marketing materials and all of the things. And I had a whole company. Like my whole company was built then. And what did I do? I went and got another office job. And not only that, but it was in a whole different like career. Why did I do that? Because I had convinced myself that was the responsible thing to do. We have jobs that we show up Monday through Friday. We have a guaranteed paycheck. That's being responsible. But here's the truth. There's nothing responsible, not a single thing on the planet that is responsible about abandoning your gifts. There's nothing honorable about staying miserable for a paycheck. Nobody, you guys, nobody is going to come to your door and say to you, "Oh, you're getting a paycheck? Yes, you should definitely stay miserable for that amount of money." Nobody's going to come and say that to you. Not one single person. Especially when that paycheck isn't even keeping up with inflation. Now, here is the other end of said paycheck. We're going to have a hard conversation about health insurance because for a lot of us, that's the reason why we take on the job if they offer that. And that is the reason why we stay. And listen, I'm not here to minimize that. This is not a beating you up episode. What it is, though, is like health insurance is expensive. Like, health insurance is overwhelming. And I'm going to be truthful and I'm going to be honest. I would not have the health insurance that I have without my husband's job. He is the person that keeps our health insurance running. But we've literally built our lives around a broken system. We have. And I don't blame you for trying to survive within that. But I want you to hear me. Health insurance is not the dream. It's not the reason to stay in a job that makes you physically sick. Like if you are waking every day and you are physically sick, I used to cry the 7 minutes to my job every day. I lived just 7 minutes from my office, and I spent that time crying on the way there and on the way back. We need to stop taking jobs for the benefits and start building lives that actually feel like our own. I don't care if that's a different job. I don't care if that is building something of your own. But there are options, right? Like if I didn't have my husband and I was self-employed still, there are self-employed health plans. There are marketplace options. There are healthcare collectives. There are obviously what I have, which is my spousal plan, right? There's group rates through business communities. There's HSA, preventative care, sliding scales, like all the things. And I'm not saying that it's easy, but what I'm saying is this. None of those options require you to sacrifice your soul. Not one of them. You're not stuck. You're scared. And that's okay. But fear is not a strategy. Let me name what scarcity mindset actually sounds like because it's sneaky and it doesn't always sound like I'm broke, right? Sometimes it sounds like, who do you think I am? Who do I think I am? I can't afford to leave. What if it doesn't work out? People like me don't get to do things like that. Scarcity mindset says stay small, stay hidden, stay safe. It tells you to make fear your compass. It cloaks itself in this logic that you have formulated in the back of your mind, but most of what you call logic is just unprocessed fear. Here's the truth, you guys, you're not lazy. You're not unmotivated. You're not unclear. Those are all the things that you tell yourself that you are as to why you're not taking the plunge, but the reality is you're scared. And that is part of the human experience. That is part of being a human, is being scared. But we don't have to build lives inside that fear. We don't have to build a career that runs on fuel of just in case. Because here's the reality, that company can shut down tomorrow. That building can burn down. And if you don't have the audacity to take a chance on yourself, then you're taking a chance literally on somebody else's dream that they have already built, but it still can break and it still can shut down. So, what's the alternative, Callie? You've been preaching for however many minutes to me about scarcity mindset and all the things. So, what's the alternative? What do I do instead? And the instead is you live in an abundance mindset. Not toxic positivity. We're not doing that. It's not magical thinking. We're not going to fake it till you make it, but real rooted abundance. Abundance mindset is not just about manifesting $1 million. manifesting six figures, manifesting a 3-day work week. That's not an abundance mindset. What it is it's a knowing. It is like this real knowing that you are capable of building a life that serves you and your family and your little people if you have them, or your teens that you have them, or even your adult children. It is building the knowing that you can bet on yourself. And it's the belief that you are not a victim of your circumstances. You are literally the co-creator of your life. You are, and if you're a God girl, you are working in tandem with what God's purpose is for you. If you're a universe girl, same thing, different font, you guys. You are the co-creator of your reality. And it's the understanding that money is renewable. Listen, I have a client that is so dang wise, and I will quote her and I will put in her podcast episode. But I read through one of the things that she is creating and has put together, and it literally brought me to tears. And it said, money is a tool. Money is a tool. It is the understanding that money is renewable. You can always make more money, always. But time and energy are not renewable resources. When you operate from abundance, you stop choosing jobs out of fear and you start choosing them out of alignment. You start saying no to things that sort of work so you can say yes to things that deeply work. And you give yourself permission to be ambitious, to take up space, to build, to make money doing what you're actually good at. You don't wait until the timing is perfect because you understand that clarity comes through motion. So what if you do it once and it fails? You didn't do it 25 times and it still continues to fail. And I have a podcast episode that I'll also link about like taking on the chance of doing one thing, repeating it, and doing it well, and learning from what it is and shifting and moving, right? It's the same thing. You don't need more credentials. There's going to be a podcast episode about that. You don't need more credentials, okay? You don't need a 10-step exit strategy. What you need is to believe in yourself and believe in yourself so wholeheartedly that you can slash and will do this. Living with yourself out of a yes and. Yes, I'm capable, and I am doing whatever it is. And let's be clear, this doesn't mean you have to quit your job today. Do not, I repeat, do not walk into your employer and be like, well, Callie told me I need to quit my job today because I'm not living in alignment. That's not what I'm saying. Although, if you're ready to quit your job today, honey, you strap them shoes on today and you go in your job and you say, I'm giving you a 2-day notice. As my husband would say, I'm leaving today. Today. Today, I'm leaving. And it doesn't mean, right, that you have to burn it all down, but it does mean that you have to stop pretending that barely enough, this at least mindset, is your ceiling. You're allowed to want more. You're allowed to build more, even if it takes time, even if it's messy, even if your voice shakes while you do it, because here's the alternative. The alternative is staying stuck in a life that doesn't feel like yours. That's not safety. That is a slow, painful death. Death of who you thought you were going to be in life, who you want to be in life, and who you have potential to be. So let me leave you with this. If you're waking up every day dreading your job, if your Sunday night feels like grief, if you've convinced yourself that at least it's secure is enough to stay, let this be your sign. You deserve more than survival. Scarcity was never meant to be your strategy. You're allowed to build something bold, something aligned, something of your own making. As my wise Oma always says, you're allowed to make mid-course corrections, even if it's messy, especially if it's yours. And so, if you're ready to stop settling and start building, you have to get it off of this mindset of at least, because you don't need another job that you hate. You need a life that feels like yours. And that, my friends, you need to say to yourself, that starts now. Hey, friend. Thanks for hanging out with me today. If something in this episode clicked for you, I want you to shoot me a DM over on Instagram. The link is in the show notes. Let's chat about how you're making the messy middle work for you. If you loved what you heard, would you mind sharing this episode with a friend who needs to hear it too? And drop a quick review if you don't mind. It helps get the word out, and I appreciate it more than you know. Catch you in the next one.